Have you ever opened your manuscript and realised that the spark of excitement that you first felt has gone quiet? You still care about the book and you still want to finish it, but that little rush of curiosity, delight, and excitement, even that possibility that first brought you to the story, suddenly feels really out of reach. And that can feel frightening, can't it? Because when the joy goes quiet, writers often turn it into a verdict. Maybe this book is wrong. Maybe I've lost my passion. Maybe I'm forcing something that should be easier. Maybe I'm simply over it and I shouldn't write this book. But what if that fading joy isn't proof that the story's abandoned you? What if it's often a sign that pressure has simply started speaking louder than the pleasure of writing it? In today's episode, we're talking about why joy fades, what it might be trying to tell you, and how to gently return to the story beneath that pressure and the proving and the deadlines and all those expectations. Because somewhere under all of that, there's still a reason this book called to you in the first place. So stay with me. If you feel called to write a book, but writer's block, procrastination, and self-doubt keep pulling you from the page, you're not alone, and you're not meant to stay stuck. Hi, I'm Maddison, author and life coach, and I've created this podcast as a creative space grounded in faith and mindset transformations to help you break through your blocks, gain creative clarity, and finally finish the book you're meant to write. So grab your cup of liquid gold and let's write the darn book together. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Write the Darn Book. I'm your host, Maddison, and in today's Mindset Monday episode, we're talking all about how to fall back in love with your story when the manuscript started feeling really heavy or flat, or more like a task than a calling. This episode is for the writer who used to think about their story everywhere, in the shower, in the car, while folding the laundry or making a coffee, but somewhere along the way, the joy got buried underneath the pressure. So grab your cup of liquid gold, settle in, and let's return back to the pleasure of the page. Now, there is a very particular ache that happens when you lose joy in your writing. It's a different kind of thing than ordinary procrastination, and it's different from just being busy. This one feels more personal. You open up your manuscript, you look at the words, and instead of feeling pulled into the book, you feel distance, almost as though the book belongs to someone else. For many writers, that distance becomes frightening because writers are meaning-making machines. We rarely let an emotion simply be an emotion. We turn it into a verdict. If writing feels hard, we decide the book must be wrong. If the joy feels dim, we decide that the passion must be gone. And if the next scene feels dull and flat, we decide that the whole manuscript might be lifeless. But joy in writing is much more delicate than that. It can be covered and it can be crowded out. It can be drowned beneath deadlines and comparisons and having to feel perfect about the work, perhaps negative feedback or pressure, and that quiet expectation that every writing session has to prove something about your ability as a writer. Joy rarely disappears all at once. It usually fades by accumulation. At the beginning, the story is allowed to be alive. You meet a character, you hear a line of dialogue, perhaps glimpse an image, or feel the pulse of an idea. There's freedom in that stage because the book is still full of possibilities. But then the book becomes real. You write enough words that it can start to disappoint you. You can get far enough into the book that the structure starts asking questions. Feedback, comparison, genre expectations, publishing pressure, or your own inner critic can start crowding the page. And the story that once felt so inviting and exciting begins to feel like a public test. And bit by bit, joy gets replaced by surveillance and criticism. You're no longer being immersed in writing the scene. You're watching yourself write the scene. You're judging each sentence as it arrives. And you're wondering whether the book will work or whether anyone will care, perhaps whether the pacing's strong enough or whether your writing is worthy enough, whether you've wasted your time. And that, my friends, is so exhausting. But it makes complete sense as to why joy can struggle to survive in that sort of environment. Nothing creative thrives under constant pressure and interrogation. So I want you to hear this from the start. Losing joy in your writing is rarely proof that you've chosen to write the wrong book, and it's rarely proof that you've failed as a writer. Sometimes it simply means that the story has become buried under too many expectations. And the work isn't forcing yourself to love it again on command. The work is to create the conditions where that delight and joy can return back to your writing when you return to the page. Now, I had this happen with the latest manuscript I just wrote. About halfway through, I lost the joy. And it wasn't because I'd stopped loving the story or caring about the characters. I absolutely still cared. But something had shifted. I could feel that the roadmap had gone blurry and the direction the story was heading in didn't feel quite right anymore. Part of me wanted to keep pushing. That very eagle part of my personality wanted to say, come on, Maddie, just keep going. You can fix it later. Just keep moving, keep writing. You have a deadline to hit. And there is absolutely time for that. There are moments in a manuscript where you do need to stop overthinking and you just need to write the darn scene. But this was different. This wasn't ordinary resistance. This wasn't me avoiding the page because I was tired or distracted or being dramatic about a difficult chapter. This was deeper, and this was my writer's intuition, that quiet knowing underneath the noise saying, if you keep going in this direction, you're going to create a much bigger mess to unravel later. And my owl side didn't feel safe with that. My owl needs clarity. It needed enough structure to be able to trust the next step of the writing. And I also needed to understand where the story was going, why the villain was doing what they were doing, and how the threads were all going to connect together. Without that, every session for me started to feel wrong. I'd sit down and I'd try to write and force the words, but there was no joy in it. There was no pull into the story and no sense of, I can't wait to see what happens next, like there normally is. It felt like I was trying to force open a door when some part of me knew that I was standing actually at the wrong door. Now, this manuscript was a bit different for me because I hadn't started plotting it in the way I usually do. I'm normally much more structured. I like to have the shape of the book, the turning points, the emotional arc, the villain thread and their motivation, and the why behind everything. But with this story, I'd allowed myself to discovery write more than usual. That was my peacock side coming out. And that was right for this book. It needed that initially. It gave the story room to breathe. It let things emerge that probably wouldn't have arrived if I'd controlled it too tightly from the beginning. But by the middle, my creative self had gone ahead exploring, but my structured self had caught up and gone, hold on a second, where are we actually going? And that's where the joy dropped out for me. Because for me, joy isn't only about fun, pretty sentences or characters bantering in my head, although I love that, or the excitement of a new idea. With my auditory digital modality, joy often comes when the pieces click into place for me. It comes from that relief of understanding the pattern beneath the story and why everything fits together. So instead of forcing myself to push through and just write, I actually had to stop pushing. I let myself breathe. I stepped away when I needed to. I went for walks, I played the playlist for that story when I did go for my walks, and I let that music soften the thinking part of my brain just enough for the imaginative part to come forward again. And this is going to sound a little strange, but as a writer, I know you'll understand what I'm about to say. The story started whispering to me again. My characters started talking to me again, and not in some dramatic mystical way, but in that real writer way where lines of dialogue appear while you're walking. A character's motivation suddenly makes sense while you're making coffee or doing the dishes, and a plot thread that you couldn't solve at the desk quietly untangles itself when you stop gripping it so tightly. The breakthrough for me came when I finally understood my villain and their motivation. So not just what they were doing, but their backstory, the why that really motivated them in terms of their character goal and arc. It was that wound beneath the behaviour, the deeper why behind the choices. So that really helped me to see what was leading them and how it connected to the rest of the book. And as soon as that clicked, the whole manuscript changed. The direction made sense. The tension made sense. The choices my characters needed to make started making sense. And my body actually felt the relief of that. It was honestly like a weight had come off my shoulders. That was the joy returning, not through fireworks or a sudden burst of, oh, everything's easy now, but through relief and safety and clarity. A feeling of, yes, now I can write this. That sense of excitement that I knew where the story was going and I could sit down and actually do justice to the characters and what they needed me to say. And once I had that, I reconnected with the story again. I could have fun again writing it. I could sit down and let the characters move and speak and surprise me and still trust that there was a deeper structure holding the book together. That experience reminded me of something I think we forget so easily as writers. Sometimes joy doesn't come back because we force ourselves through a block. Often joy comes back because we stop long enough to listen to what the block's trying to tell us. So rather than pushing through that block, instead I surrendered through it. I listened to it. I let the story show me what it needed instead of demanding that it follow the plan I thought it should have. Because when we talk about falling back in love with a story, we often imagine trying to recreate the excitement of the beginning. But sometimes the deeper joy is in meeting the story where it's at now, with all its complexity and unanswered questions and that messy middle, and asking, what are you trying to show me? And that's what brought me my joy back in terms of writing the story. Listening, walking, music, space and trust. Giving myself the permission to allow my imagination and subconscious to do what they're designed to do. And then, when the story started speaking to me again, I was ready to hear it. So let's talk about why the joy fades and how to come back to it in a way that's gentle, practical, and useful. The first thing I want you to understand is that joy often fades when the relationship changes from discovery to performance. In the beginning, writing is discovery. You're following breadcrumbs, you're curious, you're allowed to explore, to wander and be surprised by the story. Then at some point, performance enters the room. You start thinking about whether the chapter's good enough, whether the book's strong enough, whether your writing sounds like other writers in your genre, whether you're behind, whether readers, agents, editors, or your future audience is going to approve of what you're writing. And suddenly the page is no longer a place of meeting. Instead, it becomes a place of judgment, which is no fun at all. So no wonder the joy leaves, right? And this matters because your nervous system reads that shift from joy into judgment. And when the page begins to feel like a test, your body responds as though something is at stake and it goes into protection mode. You might feel tightness in your body, or perhaps restless, or your mind might feel a bit foggy, and you're suddenly desperate to do anything else except write. Now, that does not mean you are lazy. It means your system has associated your manuscript with pressure and it's protecting you. Now remember, joy is rarely going to walk into a room where pressure is holding space. So the first part of falling back in love with your story is to shift the question. Instead of asking, oh, is this good enough? Ask, where is this story still alive? And that question changes the energy of your writing session. It moves you from judgment into curiosity, and it trains your attention to look for warmth rather than evidence of failure. Now, maybe the life is in a character who keeps surprising you, or it could be in the emotional wound that you're still drawn to explore. Maybe it's in the setting or the central question or a relationship with your characters, perhaps even in the theme or the tension or the message that someone needs to hear. You're not searching for proof that your whole book is perfect. You're searching for the living thread that still has that spark of aliveness. Now, the second thing I want you to understand is that joy looks different for different writers. And this is where your creative wiring really does matter. We often talk, obviously, about the bird writing personalities in my framework, dove, owl, peacock, and eagle. And please remember, these are just tendencies, not fixed labels, because most writers are a blend, but they really can influence how we actually access that joy. Now, a dove writer might reconnect with joy through emotional meaning. So they could be asking, why does this story matter to my heart? Who might feel less alone because I wrote it? Whereas an owl might reconnect with joy through clarity by asking, what piece of the structure can I understand just enough to feel steady again? A peacock writer might reconnect through play by asking, what's going to make this scene feel more alive and vivid and surprising and fun for me to write? An eagle might reconnect through purpose by asking, what does finishing this book allow me to create or share or become or complete? Now, your NLP modality can also offer another doorway too. A visual writer might need to see the story again through a mood board or a scene image or a map or a visual timeline, whereas an auditory writer might need to hear the dialogue or read a favourite scene aloud or speak the problem into a voice note, whereas a kinesthetic writer might need to walk with the character, feel the emotional truth of the scene in the body, or write after they've moved. An auditory digital writer might need to name the logic of the block, define the real question, or create a simple framework for the next writing session. Now, the point with all of these is that joy is personal. So the way you return to joy on the page might look completely different from the way another writer returns to joy. And that is absolutely okay. In fact, it's perfect for you. You have to use your personal tendencies to help harness what works for you. Now, the third thing I want to teach you all today is this. Joy grows when you give part of the writing back to pleasure. Books, yes, absolutely require structure, craft, revision, deadlines, and honest work. Sitting down in the chair and actually putting your fingers on the keyboard and writing. Those practical things will get your book written, but they also need emotional fuel to keep coming back to the page. And joy is that fuel. It doesn't have to be loud and it doesn't have to be constant. You will have writing sessions that feel really ordinary and scenes that feel clunky and need revisions. You'll also have days where the work is simply the work. But somewhere in the process, there needs to be some spark of joy and pleasure when you sit down to write. Some sort of movement where your heart says, yes, this is why I am writing this book. So the practice I'm going to give you today is what I call the joy reset, and it has 3 parts. First is to return to the first spark. So take 5 minutes and write about the moment that this story first captured your attention. Where were you? What image or character or dialogue or feeling or idea arrived? What did you believe might be possible when it first came through? That first spark often holds the emotional DNA of the book, and it reminds you that before the pressure, there was this pull to actually write it. Now, the second thing to do is find the living thread. So open your manuscript or think about it gently and ask yourself, where is there still life here? And choose one thread only, one scene or one character, one relationship. Perhaps it's one image or question that you want to explore. And you are not looking to fix the whole book today. You're simply finding where there's still life in the book. You're finding that pulse. The third thing then is to write something nobody has to see. So for 10 minutes, write something connected to your story with absolutely no intention of using it. It could be a secret scene or a letter from one character to another. Perhaps it's a childhood memory that your protagonist never speaks aloud. Or it could be a conversation that happens outside the plot and the page. This is what we call relationship repair, because sometimes your manuscript becomes a place where everything has to be useful and on purpose, and every sentence has to earn its place. Every page must move the plot. Every scene has to be justified. But that can actually work against creativity, because creativity needs space to play and be joyful and have fun. Your imagination needs somewhere to move on the page without being immediately assessed or criticized. And when you write something nobody is ever going to see, you remind your creative mind that the page can be a safe place again, which is so important for your nervous system. Often joy is still there in the manuscript. It's just hiding because every time it's tried to come forward, it got handed a job description. It got told, be brilliant, be marketable, be moving, be original, has to be publishable, it has to be polished, it has to be impressive. No wonder the joy went quiet. So for 10 minutes, let writing be something else. Let it be curious, let it be messy, let it be vivid, let it be tender. Let it be strange and odd. Let it be yours to have fun with. And watch for the tiny signs of return. The breath that deepens, your shoulders soften. The character who said something unexpected that actually sparks your imagination further. It's that little tug of wanting to write one more sentence because you're enjoying the writing and the story. That gives you an idea that joy is starting to return. And it might be softly and possibly quietly, but it is returning. So here's your invitation for this week. Spend 10 minutes writing something purely for fun. No pressure to use it, no pressure to polish it or to make it part of your actual book. Choose one option. Write a secret scene or a letter from your character, or one tiny moment where you get to just have fun with the imagery and the scene and what's happening with the characters. And let this 10 minutes of fun writing remind you that your book is more than a task on a list. It's a relationship. It's something that shows you and something you're learning how to carry. And understanding that and having an awareness around it is absolutely beautiful. But awareness without action is still just knowledge sitting on a shelf. So if you're tired of looking at your manuscript, your notes, your same unfinished chapters, and you're wondering why you're not making the progress you said you wanted to make this year, this is an opportunity for you to take action. Because, my goodness, it is already July. We're halfway through the year and it's moving so quickly. So this year, your book doesn't need another 6 months of waiting for the perfect conditions or the perfect motivation or that magical moment when everything suddenly feels easier. Your book needs support and it needs structure. It needs someone in your corner who can help you see what's actually getting in the way and give you the right tools and strategies for your unique wiring to help you stay accountable when that messy middle or the self-doubt or life tries to pull you away from the page. And that's exactly what I do in my writing coaching. We look at your book and your personality traits and modalities, and I help you map out a roadmap that is unique to you to get your book written. We look at the manuscript and the mindset, the roadmap, the resistance, your creative wiring, structure, writing rhythm, and the actual next steps that's going to help you move forward to get where you want to be as an author. So if you know you want more progress by the end of this year than you have right now, now is the time to do something about it. Go to madisonmichaels.com/call and book in a free 15-minute clarity call with me. It's a mutual fit conversation. It is not a sales pitch. It is a chance for us to talk together to see whether I can help you in terms of your writing roadmap and where you want to be. The right support can actually help you finally get your book written. Because you can keep carrying this book around for years and years, or you can take the next step. So head to madisonmichaels.com/call and book in your free clarity call, because I would absolutely love to help you get on your path to purpose and to write the book that you are here to write. All right, my friends, before we close today, I want you to hear this clearly. The loss of joy in your book is rarely the end of the story. It's most likely just a signal that your creative relationship needs some care. It might be asking you to soften the pressure, return to curiosity, and listen for that spark in your book. You don't need to love every moment of writing in order to be a real writer. And you certainly don't need every session to feel magical. You also don't need constant passion to finish your book. But you are allowed to have moments of delight and joy. You're allowed to enjoy the world you are building. And you are allowed to find those moments of joy when you do write. Because that joy matters. It's a part of the path back to the page. Remember, my friends, you are the vessel for your story. So let the words flow through you and onto the page. Until next time, my friends, take care and let's write the darn book together. My friend, I hope today's episode gave you exactly what you needed for your writing journey. And if it did, would you take 30 seconds to share it with another writer who's struggling to start or finish their book? And if you're loving the show, I'd be so grateful if you left a quick review. It means the world to me and truly makes my day to know that this podcast is helping you. And as you head back into your week, I hope you feel more supported and connected to your creativity. And remember, you're a vessel for the story. So let the words flow through you and onto the page. All right, I'm off to refill my cup of liquid gold and go and do a little writing of my own. Take care, and I'll meet you back here in the next episode of Write the Darn Book.